afternoon, my name's Seana Smith and I blog at Sydney Kids Food and Travel. I'm accidentally a mum to 4 boisterous bairns. I've got teenage sons who are 15 and 13 and boy-girl twins who are nearly 7. I'm also, and equally accidentally, the author and co-author of 4 books, all published by Jane Curry Publishing, and I've done 1 self-published e-book. We've got a fly-in, fly-out dad in our family, and we all live here in gorgeous, glorious Sydney.
Hello there. I'm a bit of an accidental blogger as well, or a backwards blogger I like to call myself, because I started off writing books and then have come to blogging. And I asked if I could write today about why I find blogging better than writing books, and also about why we should all write a book anyway. So I just thought I'd start off with a little bit about me, and then go on to what I was going to talk about. I was born and brought up in Scotland, and I had a very traditional Scottish upbringing, which means it was extremely dysfunctional. I had an aggressive alcoholic father. There was lots of verbal abuse in my family and lots of problems with drugs and mental illness. So it was just your stereotypical Scottish family. But don't panic, because I've had loads of therapy. I used to say that my husband and my eldest son were my rewards for the years of therapy, until my oldest son was diagnosed with autism disorder as well when he was 3 years old. And you've just reminded me of his first kiss, which he was taught to do when he started therapy. It was fantastic. He's 16 now, and he's confusingly described as having mild atypical autism with a language disorder and big learning difficulties. But who cares about that? Because he can play the bagpipes. So what more do you need? Our second son came along, and then for no good reason, I decided that I needed a third, and I ended up having twins when I was 42, which I definitely cannot recommend. Anyway, I was always a writer, and from when I was a little girl, I was always writing, and I always wrote a lot when I worked in television, and I used to write freelance articles on the side. I always see myself as a useful information sort of person, and my writing's just an extension of all the gossiping that has been done at playgroup and at the school gate. And so are the books, actually. It's just sharing information and being frustrated that there weren't good resources for either, at the time, for either autism or postnatal depression. Anyway, I started my blog 2 years ago, initially to promote the books and myself as an author. But I actually realised that I love blogging, and I love the fact it feels now that I'm running a little magazine. And I really enjoy that. I wanted to tell you some of the things that you don't usually hear about writing books, which are really bloody annoying and drive me bonkers. So here they are. Writing a book takes forever. It takes months. It can take years. You've got to write the text, then you've got to send it off. It comes back covered in red pen. You've got to make changes. There's proofreading. Jesus. And you need to be so pernickety about grammar and getting things right, and it drives me mad. So with blog posts, you research it, photograph it, write it, and you pop it up. And if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. You can change that. That's my approach. The other annoying thing about writing books is that it takes forever to get paid any money from them. Now, there's nothing wrong and there's absolutely everything right with wanting to be a penniless author. And let's face it, the first bit is easy. But nobody actually wants to starve. But really, unless you're a very big book writer, you don't make a lot of money, which is all right. But even the money that you do make takes a long, long time to get to the author. So, for example, you're paid for each 6 months, but then it's paid 3 months in arrears. So for books that are sold between January and June, you get paid in October. And for books that are sold between July and December, you get paid in March. And let me tell you, I'm waiting at the moment for them. But what's been really amazing since I've just started doing some sponsored posts is that people pay you straight away, and it's fantastic. But they sometimes even pay you before the post goes out. And that's really refreshing to anybody who's worked in any other kind of writing. The thing that I actually genuinely find the most frustrating about books is that they're hard to update, and all the stuff that I write needs to be updated. So it's very frustrating, because the old edition has to sell out. People say to me, oh, are you going to do a new edition every year? Well, you're not, because the publisher is going to sell all the books they've got before they want to update. Fair enough. But it's quite complicated then redoing it and reformatting it and putting it all together. And I just don't have the patience for it a lot of the time. And I think that's also why I love blogging, because if I find that something's changed or I've got a better picture or whatever, I just pull it up, make some changes and slap it back out again, and it's very quick, so it's very good. So that's all the lovely things about blogging. However, I do think that everybody should write a book anyway, and especially the people in the room today, because I think that all of us, everybody, has a story to tell, and actually most people who are sitting out here today have got more than one story to tell, and they've got several stories to tell. And there's something about writing it in the long form as well that is very satisfying for you, but it's difficult. But our stories, as we've heard here before, can really help other people, because when we share our life story and reach out, we touch people and share pain and love and hope and experience and strength, and other people know that they're not alone, which I know is repeating what other people have said. Anyway, I wanted to say, everybody does have a book in them, and everybody's story is worth sharing. These days, you can write that book, and it can be published online or in book form and shared quite easily. And the wonderful thing about blogging is that you can use the book, as several people have mentioned actually, to start getting your first drafts and things together. That means you can break up your book writing journey, because writing about real life and your own life can be very draining. I certainly found that when I wrote the autism and the postnatal depression books, which we did in quite a short period. And I found it very wearing, and I don't think I was in a great mental health state myself by the end of it. And I don't really want to put myself through that sort of thing again. I've got a book I'd like to write, which I don't think would really work with a traditional publisher, but one day it will be important for me to share the story of the whole life of my dad. And my dad's name was David MacDonald Smith, and he was born in 1938, and he died about 4 years ago. It's not just about my dad, it's the whole family. My dad was an alcoholic, and at times he was a raging, violent, vicious drunk. He was more than that, of course. He was a musician, a passionate sailor, and a successful builder. He was not a successful father, though. My younger brother bore the brunt of Dad's violence and his terrible temper. My brother took as many drugs as he possibly could, as early as he possibly could, and he became severely schizophrenic. My dad kept on drinking and drinking, and he died drunk. He probably had alcoholic dementia, which made him quite quiet and gentle at the end of his life. My mum and my sisters and I have got a lot of help in various recovery programs, and I've had my own battles with the demon drink, and have seen the writing on the wall, and recently have stopped drinking myself one day at a time, touch wood. But my brother has never recovered, and today he's safe, but he's very, very unwell. My dad's alcoholism took away from my brother the life that he could have had. That story of growing up in the chaos of a home with alcoholism is certainly not just my story. I'm sure there are people in the room who grew up that way too. But ours is a story, like everybody's story, which needs to be told. And people need to know that there is hope and recovery for kids like us, and that we do not have to visit this upon our own children. But we also need to know that alcoholism and any addictions, they're not black and white. My dad was not a bad person, even though he did many bad things. You know, I cannot sit down and write that story over a few weeks and months. Even thinking about it makes me feel like vomiting. But I can explore it in little bursts and see where it goes. And I can get support from readers as I write it all out of my system. And in the meantime, all that grim stuff, the autism, the depression, the trauma of alcoholism, can just be part of a mix on my blog, just the way it's a part of the mix in our family life. We'll mix it up with fun, food, travel, and loads of posts about living in gorgeous Sydney, and lots of time spent in the company of other bloggy writers like me. Thank you very much.